All my life I've gravitated to small things. Miniatures, fingerboards, bonsai, model kits, film miniatures, little representations of larger forms, but also of small worlds, diatoms and cell structures, atoms and quarks. The grooves of a vinyl record when seen under electron microscopes. How those minute jagged lines in wax can almost inconceivably produce all the harmonies, melodies, and modes music has to offer us. Whether it's miniatures or microcosms, it's the very idea of scale that I've found fascinating. How nature tends to represent itself visually as something scalable across space and time through fractal geometry. And while it might be an overused trope to point out the spiral in a nautilus shell, a hurricane, and a galaxy, it shouldn't take away from the beauty and wonder of how these representations can appear as some strange mathematical specters haunting all of space and time. How the branching capillaries of the lungs and the cascading waterways of rivers and tributaries appear to have some sort of agreement in their fractal likeness. This representational reverence of small things that we've crafted throughout human history has been a defining feature of our human culture. Miniatures have always been with us throughout human history. The Venus figures of the Paleolithic, with their godly representations of a pregnant woman seen as a central religious figure of worship, were the earliest representations of the human depicted in a scaled-down physical form. The art of both bonsai and SAIKEI have always been about a representational microcosm of our own world, made to emulate the landscape, not just of trees, but of rock outcroppings, hills, mountains, and pathways. Bonsai and SAIKEI capture a pure essence of the natural environments we've found ourselves within. This uncanny similarity speaks to something deep and archaic inside of us. Bonsai flourish in the summer, they wither in the fall, go bare in the winter, and in the spring come alive again. A cycle that we as a species have been a part of from our evolutionary inception. I think my first real obsession with miniatures was through fingerboards, or at least the first time that I took note of miniaturization as an understood concept. For a kid growing up in the 90s, the Tech Deck brand of fingerboards were inescapable. These 1/8 scale miniature skateboards had real grip tape, trucks, wheels, nuts, and screws. And since I grew up in Montana but spent summers with my grandparents in California, much of the school year was spent in the freezing Montana snow, which meant I couldn't just go out and skateboard any day that I wanted like I did in California. Fingerboards gave me the ability to skate during the winter, in a figurative sense, of course. So I was instantly captivated by them. This became a lifelong appreciation for fingerboards, which have evolved over the years far past the commercialized Tech Deck brand name. And as more and more fingerboard companies have popped up, they've become an art form in their own right. Fingerboards have become more realistic, more involved, in terms of both the fingerboards themselves, real bushings, their wheels now have small ball bearings, the boards are now made with wooden plies like real skateboards, the graphics wear out in the same way as real graphics, but also the obstacles have become more realistic, being made of wood, concrete, and metal, featuring realistic bricks and graffiti. My fascination with fingerboards probably resembles a lot of earlier generations' fascination with model trains or dollhouses, with their elaborate displays and attention to detail. These sorts of miniatures are the forebears of not only contemporary miniatures, but also of contemporary toys. Star Wars action figures, Polly Pockets, Hot Wheels die-cast vehicles. In our contemporary times, toys are likely the biggest entry point for most people into the world of miniatures since you've come across them as kids. Model trains have been a point of fascination throughout the years that carries over into each generation. With their perfectly scaled sizes, ornate details, and ability to create an expansive and intricate world that encapsulates the miniature train system. Because toys have also always been a form of miniature representation, even going back to ancient times, like this toy in the form of a figure with a rolling pin from 450 BCE, featuring movable, articulated arms. The same awe and interest I had towards miniatures, whether it be toys like fingerboards or art forms like bonsai, held the same appeal to me as when I learned about film miniatures. I remember being a kid and learning about the miniatures from Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, and seeing these incredibly detailed, small-scale sets used in production. This sent me down the long history of film miniatures in Star Wars, but also of the long history of miniatures that have been used throughout the whole of film history. when it's too costly or unfeasible to create a life-size set or to shoot on location. These film miniatures give filmmakers the ability to invent whole cities, worlds, and environments. Under their control, these miniatures, and their even larger miniature counterparts later coined bigatures by Weta Workshop during the filming of Lord of the Rings, can often seamlessly trick the audience into believing they're real, full-size locations. I recently watched Dante's Peak and was floored when I later learned that this particular scene of Humvees crossing a bridge that's about to be destroyed and washed away by a raging river was a practical film bigature effect. The amount of detail that goes into these pieces that might only be seen in a shot for a matter of seconds shows just how much passion goes into the art form. And that art form, that attention to detail, and the incredible artistry required to make it, that more than anything is what has always kept me fascinated by miniatures. From this ancient Egyptian miniature of a Middle Kingdom sporting boat made around 1980 BCE, almost 4,000 years before Georges Méliès first used a film miniature in his cinema masterpiece A Trip to the Moon in 1902. Miniatures have endured throughout the centuries, and they'll continue to endure. That's why I can't get enough of these little worlds which capture humanity's enchantment with the endless wonder of small things.